Thank you, Stephanie. What a joy for me to speak to you again. And I really love the Cloud Marketplace ministry. Since I joined the Level Up 2020 conference last year and as a keynote speaker and I gave a few workshops, I really fell in love with this ministry. So I'm serving with the Cloud team in the Bay Area and while I live here in San Diego. And not only just the one-time event they did very successfully, we also have monthly mentoring. As you can see, these 4 tracks on EMBA. So if you're interested, go check on their website. And it's very exciting to have monthly mentoring meeting with the mentees. So last few times I shared with you in April how to have effective communication skill with your boss to build positive relationship. And then in May, we talked about how to have good communication skill for career planning and career growth, including how to know yourself and let yourself be known. Today, we're going to focus on practical ABCDE communication skills that work. And these skills actually not only apply for work, in your professional life, of course, it also helps you for your personal life with your family, your friends. And I'm very excited to tell you that 90% of today's talk are examples and applications. So I'm very eager to share those with you. Eventually, we want you to learn those skills and be able to apply them in your personal and professional life. And it makes a huge difference because all the leadership quality and relationship building depend on how well we communicate with people in order to build positive relationship. So we're going to talk about these 5 skills, ABCDE skill. Before we start, remember we talked about effective communication with your boss, building positive relationship. The theme has been shine. And we already talked about how to help our boss shine, influence up. And we're going to focus on the ABCDE skill nurturing today. And we talked about one-on-one last couple of times. And I heard from many of you how well you have used some of these and really help you improve. So we're very excited to see that. Now we're going to do a quiz on how well you remember what the shine value is, because we want to make sure any communication is based on the right value, and the shine are the value for our communication foundation. So Guowei, please go ahead and launch the poll on shine value. Based on these 3 options, you want to try again? You can relaunch. Go away.
Okay, it's launched. Okay.
So there are 3 choices of what SHINE stand for.
For some reason, it stopped me to.
So do you want to try again?
Yeah, let me try one more time.
So you would choose among the 3 options, which one you believe or you remember the shine values are. Okay, so if it doesn't work out, we would move on.
Oh, it's coming here.
Okay.
I think host cannot see it, so let's wait.
Oh, no wonder.
Right now.
Okay, very good. So keep going. Looking good. The results looking like if we have over 80% correct would be a passing grade. So let us know when the time is up, Guowei. How much?
For some, today's polling have some questions, so for some reason it's already started. So this is what I first got.
Okay, very good. So you're sharing the result?
Yes, I'm sharing the result now.
Okay, very good. Well, congratulations. 80% of you got the correct answer. The SHINE stand for servanthood, humility, integrity, nurture, respect, and empathy. This is very important foundation to know that however you communicate, you live out these 5 important values to shine and help other people shine with a servanthood mindset, that you think about where they are coming from, other-centric, not about me, myself, and I, what I need, what I want. It's about what others need, what they want. How can I be considerate to think about what they need? What's the win-win? Not expecting return, and we would accept the way they are. We cannot change them. The only person we can change is ourselves. So start with the servanthood mindset and be humble and have a humility mindset where we're willing to apologize when we're wrong. And it really draws people to you when you're willing to apologize, when you're willing to ask for help and ask people to help and teach you on things, when you're open-minded, when you even can humor yourself and teach yourself. For example, I tend to talk fast and work hard, and I can make a joke about myself. Here we go, Elaine, the high achiever again. You know, make fun of yourself and help have a good, relaxing atmosphere so people feel that you're welcome, you're open, and that you're self-aware and you're also others aware. And people will lower the guard and would like to come to you. And you're willing to listen with a humble heart, willing to collaborate. And in the future, when we talk about negotiation skill, how to solve conflict, we'll talk about the importance of collaboration and also acknowledge when you make a mistake. I is integrity, doing the same right thing whether people are watching or not. That's the definition of integrity. Be yourself, be your true self, right? To speak the truth, to speak up what is right with wisdom in the right way. And we're going to learn about those techniques today, whether in good times or in bad times. And it's nurturing respect. And that's critical to build relationship. Even when we learn all the skills today, if you don't have a good relationship, however good you do using these skills, without a good relationship, it may not come across well. So it's going to take the time to invest using these SHINE values in the relationship with the people you communicate with, whether it's your boss, your coworkers, your subordinates, or your family and friends. That way, with the relationship, you will build ally and network. And that's why in Chinese, we say, 有关系就没有关系了. So when you have a relationship, solving problem is much easier. And then lastly, empathy. I want to spend an extra minute on that because empathy is a very powerful tool for us to build relationship, to build emotional quotient, to connect with people in emotions, not just in our head knowledge, but also in our heart. Connecting with them is very powerful. And it's your own decision and your choice to decide how you respond or react to people when they say certain things. So my definition of emotional quotient isn't just about managing your emotion or influencing others' emotion. It's about not let others' words and action change your value or control your response. So it's really taking the high road and be cool and have self-control. So how do we express empathy? You express empathy by way of what Romans 12:15 tells us. Rejoice with those who rejoice and mourn with those who mourn. Just like this picture. When you're talking to someone, you don't just connect in the head knowledge, you also connect in their heart. How do they feel? If they are raining, they're gloomy, you feel the rain and the gloomy like they do. So the empathy is powerful when you practice these 3 words, avoid the first 2 and do the last one. In English, The three words that are very similar about emotional connection. First one is apathy, 无情. I don't care how you feel. That's very bad, right? You're not connecting in their hearts. The second one is sympathy, 同情. I am sorry for how you feel. That it's a little better than apathy, but not good enough. And the best one is empathy, 移情. You move their emotion to your emotion. You feel the same way, like Romans 12:15. I feel how you feel. So we're going to include this and practice this in our communication techniques. So always remember to shine empathy. Now we're going to do a poll and test if we remember and how well we remember what grown stand for. So go ahead, go away to launch the second poll. So go ahead and
I have launched the poll, so please make the answer.
and this is the interactive part, so it's not just listening.
Right now I have 20 votes. We have 86 attendees. So we need more participation.
91 now, right? 91 attendees. So we should at least have more. So everyone put in your vote. We're getting there.
Okay, the poll started. Stop. So let me show the result.
All right. Thank you. So still the winning team did get the right answer, 54%. Thank you, go away. So grown is the opposite of shine. Those are the negative value, and these are the times when you show low EQ. Shine is when you show high EQ. So we don't want to groan, to have groans, meaning gossip and greedy. Oftentimes, we join other people in complaining, and be very careful. In my mentoring discussion with my mentees, as we go into understanding some of the relationship challenges at work, then we realize some of the reason is because we gossip or we complain about other people. That damages the relationship. So ask God to help us to avoid the gossip and be greedy and avoid revenge. Return an eye for an eye. Instead, return good when people do evil to you. Always obsessed in self-pity. So avoid self-accusation, self-pity, 自卑自怜自责. So let's avoid that and really let God give us the positive mindset and look on the bright side and have glass full instead of have glass empty. A is avoid any actions and attitude that's against the biblical value, like being very mean, forming cliques and little groups, and taking sides. And it's negative reaction. So avoid just reacting in low EQ, however you feel, and you just blow up. Instead, ask God to help us to have self-control and be thoughtful in how we respond. And one good idea is to take yourself out of the situation in the mindset, like go to a balcony, 去心灵阳台, go somewhere in your mind so that you're not in the middle of all the angry situation and get mad and get even, and yet try and ask God to help us to have a peaceful, calm response. And we'll have some techniques to help us. And lastly, S is not to be selfish and think about me, myself, and I, and be stressed about it. So those are the grown, and you can see these picture of yellow faces of what we want to avoid. And my ministry call to work. And by the way, there are many resources out there to help us how to respond to God as God has called every one of us to work, and techniques to build relationship. So our logo is also yellow, and that's actually a positive logo to encourage you, to equip you, and expand you with the tips. So as an example, how to apply shine versus groans. How do you handle office politics with wise communication? So for us, doesn't mean that you're just going to be silent and let people step on us like a carpet and take advantage of us. That's not the case. So Matthew 10:16 is always my favorite verse to remind me that I can be shrewd like snake and innocent like a dove. 灵巧像蛇，驯良像鸽子. So I always think of an example when I was younger, working among engineers who are mostly men, and many of them are Americans and very few Asians. So being a young female Chinese engineer, people may think that I should just be quiet and not say anything. And they may look at me like I am nobody and I'm invisible. They don't hear me and they don't see me. So in meetings, if I make a suggestion, they may ignore me. So one time in a meeting, I pray and I know this suggestion is a good one. So I share my suggestion. And then the room was quiet. No one say anything. A second later, another Caucasian male coworker made the same suggestion. Then the whole room full of people in the meeting said, wow, what a good idea, John. Then I pray instead of groans, complaining, getting mad and get even and getting angry. I pray and God gave me the wisdom and say, John, I'm so glad you agree with my idea. Let's work on this idea together and make it successful as a team. Praise God. God gave me the wisdom not just to stay silent and be ignored. I know to respond and applaud John and congratulate him for saying the same idea, because I just said it. Obviously, people would have heard it, and that we can work on it together as a team and make it successful. So that's an example, 灵巧, how to be shrewd like a snake and innocent like a dove. So when we communicate and practice these ABCDE communication skill, we start with active listening. I want to remind us when we communicate, there's a process of the sender, me speaking or writing or sending a message to the receiver, and then people would give us feedback. Remember, through this process, the goal is to convey some ideas so we can discuss and listen to others people's input and agree on how we could proceed and make good progress as a team. So the goal is to convey information, to discuss and agree, and then make progress. And that would include head knowledge, and also remember the heart connection, and then get to your hand to make actions, and then even to your feet when you become regular habits to make progress as a team. So remember, those are the goals. So start with active listening. Active listening, when we speak, isn't just us talking. We also need to listen. And this is very powerful, how to extend grace when we practice this active listening skill. When we talk and listen, we learn to give encouragement and feedback and use I statement. We learn how to restate and paraphrase what you hear from them and summarize. A is to learn asking questions. And successful leaders really have a skill and the art how to ask good questions to clarify so that we have a dialogue and invite conversation instead of one way. C is to be considerate and open to understanding. E is to express empathy. We're going to learn skills how to do that and share compassion and relate to their feeling, to have a heart connection. So start with encouragement. When people are speaking, you would respond with your body language and some minor acknowledgement. So you need to be wise. Don't keep saying, I see, yes, too much, right? That will be interrupting people. So from time to time, ask God for wisdom when you say, yeah, that's interesting, sounds good. That encourage them to continue. And you learn to respond and restate. Not just repeat the same word they say, you rephrase it in a way that, wow, you really get it. You can say, what you're saying is, so I understand your idea is. And you reflect on their feelings. And this is very powerful, especially with parenting and marriage. You reflect and rephrase how they feel. And this is where empathy comes in, right? You're showing empathy. Wow, you must feel frustrated. These days, as we are in the pandemic and we are staying home, when you talk to your coworkers or your family members, you can say it must be difficult to care for your work and care for your family, cooking. So you can think of emotional words, feeling words. You must feel disappointed that you didn't get a chance to work on this project. Oh, sounds like you enjoyed it. That must have been a challenge, or that must have been fun. I can understand you feel, oh, that must be frustrating. So these are good ways to relate to how people feel. And then at the end of a conversation, you can always communicate and summarize. Say, oh, to summarize, you think that we should do A, B, C. If I understand you correctly, you're suggesting these are the major issues. So any successful leader and project manager would always like to summarize what the communication was about. So another active listening skill is using I statements. When we use I statement, doesn't mean that we're selfish, me, myself, and I. It's to show how you feel and to show that you are humble, right? This is the acrostic, that you have humility and willing to change. And you see why, because of example I'll show you. U is to understand that you own some problem too, not just people's fault, but you also have some responsibility. M is to model openness and honesty when you use the I statement. B is not blaming others. You also take responsibility for yourself. L is to lead with the conflict resolution instead of causing a blow up. So we'll talk more about conflict resolution skill in a future workshop. And E is to express your own feeling and what your needs are using the I statement. So these are some examples of I statement. I have something I like to discuss with you that I think will help us work together more effectively. When you say that, you're coming from your point of view and not asking what people need to do. You're taking responsibility. I like to talk about some project with you. First, I like to get your point of view, like to listen to what you think. I need your help with what just happened. Do you have a few minutes to talk? Always ask permission when is a good time to talk, especially if it's something sensitive. Maybe something just happened that caused some alarm, and you want to discuss them when everyone is in a good mood and when they give you permission to talk about it. And the last example of I statement, I think we have different perspective about this project. I'd like to hear your thinking on this so we can discuss more about it. So these are examples of I statement. And we want to avoid blaming others, right? Once you think about blaming others, people will put up their guard and defend themselves and not open to discussion. And that would cause communication barrier. If we blame others and think that they contribute to the problem, we sometimes will say, oh, they said that, they did that, they denied that, and they promised that, and they didn't do it. Those are negative way of communication. And these are more examples of I statement. We take responsibility. We say how we contributed to the problem. And you say, oh, I forgot to do this part. Oh, I thought we could do it this way. I assumed and I neglected. When you use these I statement, you took responsibility and what you did, and people will lower their guard and they're more open to take their share of the responsibility. Another active listening skill is to invite discussion. How can we have a conversation about some ideas? And you know, the most powerful way to get your idea across and let people agree with you is not to push the idea to people and force people and control people to agree with you. The most effective and powerful way is to have a conversation and ask good questions. And at the end, people actually like your idea so much that they even own up this idea, and that you could say, wow, what a good idea, team, that we come up with it together, and they have a sense of ownership. And that way they are proud of it. And that is the art of inviting discussion. So there are two types of question you can invite discussion. One is closed question. You say yes or no. Then those are not good questions because you just ask yes or no, and that's the end of the conversation. We want to ask open questions. And what are the ways to ask open questions? It's not yes and no. You're going to ask questions that are the 5 W and the 1 H. Where, who, why, when, what, right? And the how. So these are examples of open questions. How do you see the situation? That would invite open discussion. How do you feel about what I said? What is your perspective on this? What do you want to happen? How do you feel if you would move forward from here? What options do you think are open to us? So these are good ways for active listening to invite discussions and open questions. So that's active listening skill. B, it's body language. So a research actually show in some conversations, the 3 types of way conveying what we want to say. Turns out 50%, which is the majority, is what people see. That's why PowerPoint, visual aids, and your body language is so important, because people learn in 3 ways. They learn visual, what they see. So your body language convey how you communicate, 55%. And secondly, people learn by auditory, by what they listen. That's why we learn how to communicate with our voice, 38%. Your pace, your speed, your tone, your volume, loud or soft, changing those tones help people to get attention, right? So 38%. And then the third is 7% is verbal. So we work very hard on what words to use, and that only 7%. So B is the visual, body language. So even as I'm speaking to you through Zoom, I hope you see my body language in my facial expression, in my hand motion, right? Even in my solar, right? You want to be shining, 阳光, when let people feel that you have energy, and I sit slightly forward, maintain my open posture instead of holding my hand like that, right? If you see someone holding your hand around your chest, you feel that this person is not open. I always to look into your eyes. Even though I don't see you physically, I can see you through the camera. Hope you see my eye contact with you. And especially when you meet with someone in person, that's very powerful. And pay attention and reflect what they say using those rephrase and reflect their feeling technique that we said in the active listening. So the attention is important, even though when you're listening and you may prepare to respond to them later on, be careful not to be distracted. So be solar and also be softened, right? Smile, open arms, a little forward as appropriate, handshake or touching as appropriate, and the eye contact and not. And that way people feel that, you are softened. So that's B in our ABCDE skill. And C, it's character praise. And also learn to do wise appeal. When we praise people, as you know, when people communicate, they like to be encouraged and you want to give shout out to them. However, a lot of times when we praise people, we tend to be too generic. Very good, nice job, awesome, terrific. That's not very meaningful. So I encourage you to learn to praise people with very specific, descriptive character words that help to set expectation of what you like them to do And when you praise people, you set the right expectation of what those value and characters are. And you really want to catch them do right and say it the moment they do it. For example, I like how you're generous with your time, helping the team to understand how to use this tool and be successful. So the character word is generous. So be specific on the action they did. And when you say that, that reinforces what your expectation is and reinforce the right behavior, especially when you see some people may not be as generous in general in other times, and that would help to remind them, wow, you really appreciate and value that. Thank you for demonstrating a strong sense of commitment. So this is very powerful. We're going to use this in our practice session. And then the next skill that also reinforces character is a wise appeal. And this is very powerful, especially with teenagers. And I'll use the skill for both communicating with your boss and one with your teenager. So here's how it goes. So this is talking to your boss. Boss, I understand you want me to add a new project to work on it because your leadership needs our attention on this project as a priority. I have an issue with this because I'm finishing a presentation that you need and you asked me to work on to finish tonight so that you can present to your co-workers. Could I please have a few hours to finish this presentation? Then I'll work on the project right away. When you use this wise appeal skill, you are telling your boss that you understand why they need you to work on the project. So they feel really good that you understand their need. And then you can explain why you have an issue because you have something else you need to finish. And then you set the expectation of extra time, however many hours or days you need. Then you'll get back to the project that they need. That way, you can have a wise appeal. In the same way, you can teach a teenager to communicate in the following way. Mom, I understand you want me to take care of the garbage because it's full and it smells. I have an issue with it because I am talking to my friend to finish a school project now. Could I please have 2 more hours to finish? Then I'll come back to take care of the garbage. How do you feel as a parent when your teenagers speak that way? Because they understand why you need them to do the garbage and they give you a reason and they have a wise appeal asking for the time and come back to do it. So this is a practical skill that you would learn in your practice session at the end. D is discipline the tongue. So often we forgot that God created us and gave us 2 ears, right? And 1 mouth. And the reason is God wants us to listen at least twice as much as we speak. That's why in James 1:19 reminds us, everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. And even in this Chinese character, and the Western scholars study our Chinese character and notice that in the word listen include not just the ear, include this character here that means king, that we respect the listener, the speaker like a king, that we respect that person like a king. And then we respect you, and then with our eye contact, like our body language that we talked about, and we listen with our whole heart, dedicated attention. So we pray to have the wisdom, active listening with 2 ears and speak less. And very amazing in English language, the word listen with L-I-S-T-E-N, the 6th alphabet, I notice is the same 6th alphabet that when you rearrange, guess what? It turned into silence. In other words, the true meaning of listen is to be silent, to have, and that we could really respect what the speaker is trying to say, and then practice listening skill. And to discipline our tongue, I always remind especially parents in my parenting talk to tell them 少开金口，多说金话. This is my famous 8 characters in Chinese, 八字经名言哈. So hold your tongue unless you have something good to say, something positive to build people up. Just like in Proverbs 25:11 that says, a word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in settings of silver. So words that are positive, encouraging, that are character building. So we have to think 3 times before we speak. 三思而后说. There's so many times as a mom, I would ask my children to pray for me if I'm about to lose my temper. Say, oh, mom is about to lose temper, pray for me. So I don't say words that would destroy and tear down my children's character and our relationship. So only golden words. So Proverbs 17:28 reminds us, even a fool is counted wise. When he holds his peace, when he shuts his lips, he is considered perceptive. So 少开金口. So think 3 times before you speak. If you don't need to speak, then stop the words. So these days, as we are at home, spending 24 hours a day with our family is actually valuable opportunity, a once in a lifetime, to build positive relationship. So when we about to speak, be careful. We are really saying something positive, and we'll give you many examples to do that. And that's the letter E. How do we express affirmation? How do we say golden words? So example, these are the 5 A's to express our affirmation. Appreciation, right? Always be thankful. Catch people doing the right thing and thanking them for going above and beyond their call of duty. I'm grateful for your support, appreciation. Second A is affirmation. And this is where we need to be very sensitive and be aware, especially the troublemakers or the low performers or your children who may be difficult. Catch them do right. Don't just keep nagging and catch people's wrong behavior. The moment that they do the right thing, you say, wow, thank you, Johnny, for putting your toys away. Thank you for sharing your snack with your sister. I really like how you organize your project, Amy. And Mark, you demonstrated responsibility, strong ethics. This is affirmation. As you all know, the 5 gifts of the 5 gifts of love languages, right? The 5 love languages, and how among the 5 love languages, the most popular one when I ask my audience is always words of affirmation, positive words. So we need to think positive, be proactive and catch people do right, be professional, polite, and praise them with character words, and be ready to know these character words. So I have a tool that has a 7x7 matrix of character words like resourceful, responsibility, honest, generous. So learn those characters. The third A is acceptance. Everyone is different. We need to accept the way people are. Don't expect people to change and be like you. So by way of telling them, oh, I'm listening, I respect you. Oh, you're right, I understand. Oh, what do you think? Those are ways to express how you accept them. And the 4th A is be authentic, be genuine, be sincere. Don't be fake or hypocritical. You need to say what you mean. Even if you may disagree, and we're going to have some techniques how to say something that you may not agree or something that you recommend for people to change. How are we going to do that and be authentic? So here are some techniques. What if perhaps we can, I feel encouraged when you share honest feedback. That's really inviting others. So you're genuine and establish a common ground. be mature, and overcome any peer pressure. And the fifth and final A is very powerful. And we talk about this in the humility. When you are humble, you're willing to admit and apologize when you're wrong. And I do this so much with my children when they're young. When I lost my temper, I would apologize to them. I'm sorry, I was wrong. I jump into conclusion. Would you forgive mommy? And when they say, oh yeah, they forgive me, we did a bear hug and we're so happy. And there are times they would say, oh, not yet. Then I would need to have courage and come back and ask them again. And there are times that they may say no, then I would pray for courage. And that is not to lose our authority as a parent, still to establish relationship and role model for our children that we are humble to apologize, and parents are not always right. Same way at work, you can apologize to your subordinates, your co-workers when you are wrong, and definitely to your customers. And that way you would be more open to 360-degree feedback. So those are the ABCDE communication skill. And I'm going to give you very specific applications and also summarize some general principle, how to be sincere, authentic in your communication. So the sincere are 7 examples of communication attitude and approach. S is simple, right? Keep it simple, less is better, and tell stories. People love stories, and you're going to hear many stories in the remaining workshop. And be sensitive to how people feel. I is intentional. When you have a goal and a purpose of what you want to accomplish, so that is the team goal, and willing to have active listening skill. N is never interrupt. Because remember, 2 ears, 1 mouth. And avoid saying, you never help me. You always are stubborn. Don't use those words that are too biased. Instead, you could say, oh, sometimes I feel you didn't help me. From time to time, I feel this way. So don't say never or always. That's very discouraging. And those are not golden words. C is to be creative, right? And we're going to give you some creative ideas like the past ones and then some more new ones. The goal is to connect with the audience in not just their head knowledge, but also in their heart and in the hand. E is excellent preparation. For example, when you do one-on-one with your boss, it takes a lot of preparation and practice and prayer. Also takes relationship building. It isn't just using certain skill or technique. It's about building good relationship as the foundation, the shine value, right? So that when you have good relationship, people will be more open-minded because you already build a good rapport. Like one of the attendees told me that they use these skills and really help them build good rapport, and that people will be more open-minded. And remember to learn to recap and rephrase what you heard, so people know that you're really listening. And then E is to express what the audience really need and how they feel. So that's how we want to be sincere. So the 7 C of effective communication, we're going to have all these very practical examples. You want to communicate something complete, so it's not partial information on what they really need. You want to be concise. Remember, less is more. And we're going to practice example on the source story, less than a minute, less and small, because listening takes energy, takes attention, takes work. If you say less without the filler words, I mean, that would be less work for people to listen. So very clear and concise. Be considerate. Think about the audience. If you are talking to executives, you want a high level summary. If you're talking to coworker or subordinate, you may go into more detail based on what they need and what they want. Be considerate. And also be professional, right? Be polite. Clear, keep it simple and articulate. Very concrete. very specific. And you see examples on that. And then courteous, right? Very respectful of what they think. And finally, be correct. Make sure you have the right numbers, the right facts, and the right language, and the right grammar. So here are some examples on how to be complete, right? So the first one, let us meet tomorrow to discuss the product launch event. Please be there on time. Compared to the next one, let us meet tomorrow at 11 a.m. at conference room A to discuss the product launch event. We will have to decide the keynote speakers and complete event invite draft tomorrow. Please be there on time. Which one is more complete? The second one, right? So the first one is too vague, not complete. So the second one is an example of complete communication. Next, which one is more concise? Top one. I think we need to talk about the CSR, corporate social responsibility campaign. I mean the one which we need to do as a quarterly exercise. I think it's a great way of enhancing our brand image. Basically, it would just be a visit to an orphanage, but we can sort of do other things too. For instance, we could take the kids out, short trip to a nearby park or zoo. Let us sit and talk tomorrow. That's very wordy. Compared to the bottom one, I need to discuss the quarterly CSR campaign with you. Let us take the kids out this time to a nearby park or zoo instead of just visiting them. This will help enhance our brand image. We'll talk in detail tomorrow. Which one is more concise? Obviously, the bottom one. So think about cutting out words that you don't need. Considerate, example, top one. It's impossible to do this revised scope. No big deal, I can do it too. Is that considerate compared to, it may be possible to do this revised scope. Nice job. Would you share how to do it, how you did it? Which one is more considerate? Of course, the bottom one, right? So we need to avoid the top example. How about clear? Clear sometimes may need more words to explain. The top one, I would like to talk to you about the new clients project, which the engineering team had discussed yesterday. I might need the help of John from your team. Compared to the bottom one, as you may know, we have signed up XYZ as our new client. I had a meeting with the engineering team yesterday and had discussed the campaign requirements for this project. John Redden from your team had done a pretty good job last time during the social media campaign for ABC. And so I would like him to work on the XYZ campaign too. Would you be available sometime tomorrow to discuss this further? This takes more words, and yet it's very clear to rephrase and recap what happened and really complimenting and setting good expectation of what they did and why we want to invite them. So this is a good example of very clear, and it may take a little bit more words. So that's the bottom one. Another example on clear and concise. Look at this big difference. The top one. There was an expectation on the part of the committee that there would be a cessation of work activity by everyone. Compared to the bottom one, the committee expected everyone to stop working. Wow, 21 words on the top compared to 7 words in the bottom, right? That's almost 70% reduction. Of course, the bottom is more clear and more concise. So we'll think about how you communicate and think of words that you don't need while you're speaking or when you're writing. When you're writing, you have a better chance to revisit and reread it. And then an example on concrete. And concrete may take a little more words. Top example, Hilltop Resort is the best resort. Do come to us on your next holiday. Compared to the bottom, Hilltop Resort is the jewel of the Western Hills. Take a break from your work. Escape from life's chaos and stress. Relax and rejuvenate yourself at Hilltop. Go back fresh and energized. Wow, the bottom one really very concrete. Describe very detailed how people would feel if they come to the Hilltop Resort. So depending on the audience, and if this is a marketing campaign, you would want the bottom one. And then the final example is the courteous. I won't read it in detail, but you can see the bottom one is someone who want their way. And in fact, it's a good one to listen to because this may happen quite a bit at work. The top one says, I really don't appreciate how your IT team ignore the requests from my team alone. My team is an important function in this organization too, and we have our own IT requirements. Can you ensure that your team responds promptly to my team's request here on? That's the top one, compared to the bottom. I understand that the IT team is swamped with work and guest requests from every department in the organization. This is relating to how they feel. This is very powerful to relate to how the situation is. My team, however, is working on a high priority project, and I would greatly appreciate if you could ask your team members to respond to my team's queries promptly and help us complete this project on time. Please do let me know if you need anything from me. So you can tell the bottom one is very courteous and can connect with the team, the listener, better in the head and their heart because we relate to their emotion. And finally, a correct example. The top one says, further to our conservation today, I'm attaching the plan for the first stage of the project. So we know that's a wrong word. Hope the 1 week deadline is okay with you and your team. So we notice another wrong word. So the correct one would be, further to our conversation today, I attached the plan for the first stage of the project. And hope the 1 week deadline is okay with you. So be careful and check your spelling and the words that you're using. Now, last time we talked about one-on-one communication with your boss, and I'm sure you talk to your boss all the time. You know, there are 11 things that your boss wish you would talk to them about. And we're gonna look at these. And I'll give you some ideas how you can talk about these things because your boss wants to hear them and how you could make them work for your relationship building. Your boss wants to know what you really enjoy doing, right? Instead of just listening what you don't like and what you may complain about. Be positive in your one-on-one and in your conversation. Tell them what you enjoy doing. Remember, when we talk about a career communication, you know about your SWOT and share with your boss what your strengths are. And that way they know to use your strength and that you're using those to enjoy what you're doing. And what you may be bored about. So this may seem negative, and yet it's important to use a positive approach. Be genuine and sincere. Tell your boss that some of the work may be boring, and you need to be wise when you say that, and how you would make a suggestion how this work can be handled instead of throwing a problem to your boss, and yet you really suggest how this boring work may be resolved, and maybe a junior person or you can train an intern to help. So you need to be wise. Remember, in our one-on-one topic, you want to be a proactive solution provider instead of just telling them a complaint. And you want to give them some idea on what things you can automate or streamline your workflow, right? Because you know, today, we're always asked to do more with less. So let's be careful to ask how to automate and how to streamline so we can do more with less effort, especially with AI and automation with Excel. And then your feedback and goals. And this is when your one-on-one is very important to cover. to be proactive and share your thoughts and tell them what your goals are so that they don't have to guess. And number 5, what you're thinking, right? And again, be proactive and positive how you communicate that. And number 6 is what your issues are with other people. And again, do it in a positive way. And we'll use the sandwich technique in a minute. We'll practice that. And then 7, your boss like to know issues that you are thinking about with your other employee we just talked about, or how the company influenced your perspective, how the company really changed you, train you, and add value to you. And what is not working, again, in this way, you need to think about some ideas on solution. And when you are taking off, these days we are working from home, and it's important to be proactive to let your boss know, oh, this time you would be focusing on a project, or you may be stepping away and not available. And then finally, your career progression. And we talk about this in our one-on-one, right? So when you have some difficult conversation, a sandwich technique is a very powerful tool. And this is when you could apply a sandwich technique by telling them the first bread is a positive feedback, and you need to be genuine and positive about that. And then tell them the recommendation or suggestion, not necessarily a criticism. And that's the meat. And when you say that, be sure not to start the meat with but, because once you say but, then what you just said positive, it's turned off and wiped out. So be careful to say and then the bottom bread is the final statement to tell them the reason for your recommendation and the resulting benefit. So here's an example, and we'll have a few more examples. I like how you follow through with your responsibility. And I suggest you pay more attention to detail to check the standard operating procedure, make sure those are all complete. This way, our project will benefit from your valuable contributions and be successful as a team. So when you do these 3 steps, be sure to have enough time on the second step so that they don't just listen to the bread on positive feedback and resulting benefit and lost the attention on what you want them to work on and improve. So make sure you have positive, specific recommendation on the second step, on the meat. So here's some example, and these are very good example. And this is one of the 3 techniques we're going to practice in the 15-minute breakout very soon. So here's some tricky conversation with your boss and how you could use the sandwich technique. And these are very sophisticated sandwich technique. And here's a case where you got a new job opportunity. And of course, you've gone through the job application process, interview, and you've been keeping your boss up to date, and they recommend and agree with your move. And now you're leaving. And this could be a difficult conversation. This is a good way to try. Here's how you tell your boss. You've been so incredible. In fact, that I've been recruited by another company. I accepted an offer as a district manager of XYZ Corporation yesterday. Your influence made this opportunity possible for me, and I'm grateful beyond measure. I've already been thinking about my transition. I obviously want to make it as painless as possible. And this is where you can insert how you may wrap up your project and how you may have a written job description to help with transition and put a binder together for the next person to be a walking solution, like we said before, and provide extended notice and ask your boss what's needed to make sure the transition is smooth. So this is a good way to thank your boss for the support, helping you to be successful and get this job offer and making a smooth transition. The second example for tricky conversation with your boss if when you receive unfair negative feedback, and that I know happens quite often. So here's what you can do. I've thought really hard about the feedback you share with me regarding something, right? I see where you're coming from. So this is where you have active listening, acknowledge. I wanted to let you know that and this is where you insert some problem, what you observe as something that you may not agree. I also want to talk about the feedback that you believe was unfair. So this is where you insert about how people think that you're aggressive, as an example. I was caught a bit off guard when you expressed such concern, but it occurred to me that being aggressive, right, may be attributed to how people see me make suggestion. Maybe I was talking too fast and I didn't listen to people before I make a suggestion. And that's how maybe people think that I'm aggressive. So you need to explain. And here's the reason why. So then you continue on and say, I thought it may be helpful for us to communicate a bit more regularly so that you're more aware of my progress on various projects. So you can make a suggestion, especially during COVID-19. One critical factor to improve team relationship is to increase the communication frequency, whether it's a team or on one-on-one. So that's something you need to make an extra effort on. And that way you can make a suggestion how to set more regular meeting. So that's the second tricky communication with your boss. And the third and final one is when your boss is slowing you down. And I know when I talk to many of my mentees, sometimes your boss could slow you down and not helping you with the progress. So here's an example. Your boss is Mike. So how do you do? Mike, thanks for making time to sit down with me. You know how important the product launch is, and therefore how important it is to me and to the team. I'm really struggling to move forward though. And part of the problem is, and this is where you need to be careful to say it in a professional way and not attacking. So it could be part of the problem is when you would ask for status a few times a day, right? As an example. I really like us to find a way for me to be as productive as possible. And these are the I statement, right? I have a couple of ideas. I would love to hear your thought too, right? So you see the I statement example. You say, could we talk about striking a balance that will keep you, so this could be keep you informed on my progress as I would give you an update at the end of each day as an example, instead of having the mic to come to you every time. And it would be a bit easier for me to manage and ask what they think. So these are good approach to make suggestion to your boss, use the sandwich technique and do it in a positive way. And I know there are many techniques and you could take a screen capture when you listen to this again and help you to practice them. So to close, I want to go back to the one-on-one meeting agenda that I shared with you in April workshop. And when we do these one-on-one, and this is when you can have the opportunity to communicate with your boss, and you could use the approach for SOAR. And today I'm happy that I have two friends who's going to share with you their example of SOAR. So I'm going to ask Amy and Michelle to be ready and open up their mic, how they use their SOAR to make it clear and concise. And this, I know many attendees have tried and was helpful for them to use it for both their personal life and their professional life so that you can highlight the numbers and the impact. So SOAR stands for situation, obstacle, action, and result, and also comes from Isaiah 40:31, that we want to soar like eagles. And I encourage you to practice this skill and it becomes a habit and it internalizes for you that a way to communicate as an elevator pitch, whoever you may see in the hallway, or when you communicate in one-on-one on your project progress, or when you are in an interview to talk about your strength and your weakness, and talk about your what and how, and your intelligent quotient, solving problems, or emotional quotient with leadership and team building ability, or your adversity quotient, overcoming challenge, or your character quotient in your value and integrity. So I help many people to do mock interview, and I want you to prepare one story for each one of them. And people love to listen to story. So now I'm going to invite Amy. Amy has two examples. Emily, and this is her email, because Emily actually is in transition between her current job and looking at new job opportunity. And she prepared these two very good examples. If you're interested and you know opportunity, you could contact Emily. So Emily, go ahead and tell us your first example for this process improvement story.
Thank you, Elaine. The first process improvement source story is this. I'm good at solving problems with innovative solutions. For example, the OEM project struggled due to long lead time of key components. Customers suffered 3 months or longer delay constantly. I was creative and designed a process to combine both forecast only and commitment bound scheduling into procurement. As a result, I eliminated the problem and achieved on-time delivery. Customer praised our process improvement, and to my surprise, they even adopted our process in their own company.
Thank you, Emily. So that's less than a minute. Emily and I worked hard on this, and we worked hard how to remove the details and highlight the impact. And you see Emily start with telling what the strength is, and then tell the story. So really good job. And you see the impact is the 3-month delay problem is solved. And very powerful on illustrating the before, when there's the problem and the situation, and the after, where the problem is solved and remove the delay. And to her surprise, the customer liked it so much that they even adopted it. So that's a very powerful story on process improvement. So Emily's gonna do the next one on sales. Go ahead.
Sure. I'm strong in closing deals, especially large and complex scale, with win-win result. In 2018, the largest private sector cloud bid in Japan was a must-win. My company had a tough time due to low target price and negative margin. I led a 48-hour emergency task force involving engineers, purchasing, and sales to secure the deal. I delivered a proposal of advanced technology for the next 2 years. We achieved 6 million plus revenue with positive margin. I was personally acknowledged by customers' PR announcement in public.
Awesome, 52 seconds. This is outstanding. So we work on this, and I really love Emily's pace and her speed and her tone, and make a story very clear. Really good job. And you can see the before and after, the challenge of negative margin, low price competition, and yet she was so creative with the 2-year advanced technology and very aggressive time within 48 hours. And then you see the after because of the action she took. And you notice when she shared the source story, you don't need to mention the word situation, obstacle, action, and result. So good job. Thank you so much, Emily. And if you'd like to contact Emily, this is her email. And I think she has a lot to offer, and there's any opportunity to let her know.
Thank you.
Michelle, I would invite you to give your story on project management. Many of us are probably good project manager, and this would illustrate a combination of IQ, EQ, and AQ. Go ahead, Michelle. Michelle?
Thank you, Elaine. I'm a strong project manager, good at solving complex problems. leading project team with clear scope, delivering with excellence on time and budget. When working with a banking customer, they had an urgent request to deliver a set of business analytic tools due in 2 weeks. It would usually take 4 weeks to complete. The project has tight schedule, limited resource. Initial requirement was not specified in detail. I started with a thorough project plan, defined clear scope and risk mitigation. I focused on tracking the critical paths and every milestone, frequent communication with 8 key members on the issues and the resolution progress. Finally, we delivered the project on time and budget. The banking customer was very satisfied with the business analytic tools. They upgraded the service level, increased 400% more spending, and became the company's largest account.
Wow, thank you. 1 minute and 10 seconds. This is a very good and powerful story, so it took a little bit longer, and yet you can see the meat in the story for the before and after, right? You see the numbers. So this is what you can all practice, and this takes time to practice, and I welcome you to try that, and you can contact me if you need help or any of the friends and mentors. So to summarize, when we learn so many techniques, remember, it isn't just the head knowledge, and it's not just the head connection with your audience. It's also the heart. Remember the empathy, the feelings, and then hoping to make a change in your hand. And then it's not just one-time change. And I hope all these skill technique is healthy habits. And that's funny, it's my middle name, HH, right? Healthy habits, that it would become ongoing habit to use the SOAR technique and character praise in your life. So at this point, Stephanie, are there any questions? And this is my email and my website. Feel free to email me if you have any questions or practice. And we'll have a closing after the 15-minute breakout rooms. So Stephanie, are there questions that I can address right now?
I found just one question, Elaine. The people ask, what is do more with less? Can you share more example, especially now I think there's like a common requirement from the bosses. Thank you.
Exactly, that's right. So we, perhaps most of us are Asians, are really good with working hard. We must also work smart. Meaning, not just busy bee working, 埋头苦干. We need to also 抬头仰望, right? Not just bury your head in work, but also lift up your head and look around what's going on and work smart, work on the right thing, and do the right thing in the right way. So we need to prioritize, and that's a whole topic on time management. Do things that align to the organization goal and be selective, and then work smart, both effectively and efficiently. Because as we all know, companies are under budget control, budget pressure. We are asked to do 10 more things with 10 less people, isn't it? And that may be an extreme analogy. So we're doing more with less means what I just said. How to work smart, not just work hard. How to be not just effective, but also efficient. And learn how to prioritize and focus on the right thing. And how to team with people and use people's strength. And you may not be the best person to do this particular project, but your coworker is. So how do we team up and communicate and negotiate? Good question. Thank you, Stephanie. Any other question?
Well, maybe there's one more question, but this is from me. So Elaine, you talk about the ask question and how to ask questions. So there's like how, why, what. Mm-hmm. And I think this is very useful. And I do agree with you that the asking question is very important, no matter it's at work or in the family or the just conversation with everyone. But sometimes I encounter that if I ask question to particular like a Chinese group, like sometimes in church, and I found people feel offensive. And I know it's like, it's related to the Chinese culture, because I do remember we were taught in school when we were little that no question, okay? And sometimes we got reprimanded by the teacher when we asked any question. So how do we do that? Should we try to be more sensitive when we ask questions to a certain group of people?
Very good question, Stephanie. We need to be self-aware and others aware. When you ask questions, remember I mentioned earlier, the most powerful way to get your idea accepted by your team and by other people is by way of asking good question, right question to help your team to get there. And so much that they even feel that they own the idea. So it's a lot of wisdom to be self-aware, others aware, meet others where they are. You don't want to ask a question that they have no way of answering. You need to meet them where they are, understand where their capability, and ask questions in stages in a way of guiding them to get to where you want them to be. Does that make sense? And also there may be audience when you know about them that they are shy, not eager to talk, then you may start warming up, asking questions in a one-on-one setting, and then gradually helping them to be more open to speak in public. In a little bit larger group, 3 people, and then later on in 5 people. So as a leader, to help others be successful, you want to help them and set them up for success and ask questions in a way that they know how to answer and get them there gradually. So understand their culture, know your audience, and be creative to help them feel comfortable answering those questions. Does that help you, Stephanie?
Yes, very good. Actually, when I ask question, I ask to the speaker who present something, and then after that I ask him question, and he felt offensive. That's interesting. So you're right. I should really make sure that everybody feel comfortable, even including the speaker.
Very good point. You don't want to put them on the spot in public. As people have always said, you praise in public, you criticize or recommend improvement in private.
Great.
And of course, the question you're asking me now sometimes may put me on the spot. And I think as a speaker, I also need to have good EQ and good IQ how to respond, even though it may be difficult. And if I don't know the answer, I would be humble and honest to say, I'm not sure about that. I'll check and send me an email and I'll follow up. Does that make sense?
Great, thank you.
Good. Any other questions?
I think we are about time probably to do the breakout session.
Yes.
There's still a couple of questions in the chat room. I can send it to you later.
Okay,
How about that?
Good.
Okay.
Yep. So to break out, Guowei would split up into 8 or 10 groups. And the thing is, many skills that we learned, if we don't use it, you lose it. You wasted the last hour and 15 minutes of listening. So practice makes perfect. Just like how when I learned English, when I learned Mandarin as a Cantonese speaker, it takes me a lot of effort to practice. All these skills, public presentation skill, I learned over the years by writing it down, acting it out, and have an accountability with my friend to practice or record it. So this will help you from your learning for your personal and professional life. So I'm going to ask you to take a screenshot of these next 2 slides for the 3 skills we're going to practice. We're going to spend 5 minutes in each skill, total of 15 minutes in the breakout room. First is how to praise with character. So take a picture of that. I will be visiting your rooms and give you some suggestions. And at the end of the 15 minutes, for those who are interested, we'll come back to conclude and address more questions if you're able. And then the second technique is wise appeal. I gave you an example earlier, so take a picture of that. I'll come visit your rooms. And the third technique is sandwich skill. This is very powerful, so take a picture of that. So Guowei, go ahead. I know you might have done already the breakout room assignment and launch us into the next 15 minutes. And then we'll come visit you.